question mark. Hopefully, I don't know if we'll get to 1,000. I did.
You don't receive it. Can you email to him instead?
Yeah, give me a second. But yeah, so limits 1,000. From Aiden, are there only Asian people here? Good question. I'm not sure. From Jonathan, how long's the meeting? So we are currently planned to start at 9 p.m. Eastern time and to go to 10. So webinar is only 1 hour long. We'll start in 10, 11 minutes. We have to occupy a seat in advance, right? Hello said, you're from Harvard, right? Yes, I am planning on going to Harvard. What is my high school GPA? Okay. Oh gosh. Where am I from? I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm actually in the suburbs, a little bit outside of Atlanta. Eastern time is like Wisconsin, Illinois, right? I don't know, actually. Maybe. I think Illinois, yeah, but maybe not Wisconsin. Will questions be answered during the webinar or should we save them for after? I'll talk about this again, but the structure of the webinar is I'll try to talk for 40, 45 minutes and I might go longer, I might go shorter, and I'll answer the questions towards the end, the last 15 to 20 minutes. And someone corrected me. No, Illinois is Central Time. Thank you, Yoon. A lot of personal questions. Got you. Awesome. And just, if you guys have joke questions, I'd appreciate not sending them. I'm all for it. I'm all about the memes. But some people have legitimate questions that get blocked out because I see a lot of just personal questions that I don't think is appropriate to answer on here.
Is it possible to?
Okay, does anybody else see the drawing on my screen? It's like squiggly lines.
You need to
Okay, I need to disable annotating.
save the image.
Okay, I don't know how to do that. Let me
Google it.
unshare my screen. Click more. There's more. Oh, okay, I see it. On the top, it's on the security icon. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's good for figuring this out early. Okay. Allow participants to. Okay, I need. Oh gosh, I need to disable people from. Hi. Let me just search this up.
Ask the attendees.
And we also have friends from all across the world, actually. We have people from Canada, and we even have people from China, who is in a completely different time zone. And I think it's in the morning there. So thank you so much for getting up early in the morning to attend this. Both my mom and I were definitely blown away by the response that we got for this webinar and from the community. When my mom and I first talked about doing this webinar, I think it was this past weekend, in my mind, I was thinking, you know, it'd be cool to get 75 or 100 people. And then like yesterday and this morning, she was like, oh, by the way, there's like 1,000 people coming. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, is that 1000? Like there's a fourth zero on there. So it's a lot of pressure, but again, just thank you guys so much for being here. Personally, I am not the biggest fan of these huge webinar-based Zoom calls. I would much rather have more one-on-one conversations that I can, get feedback. I can see you guys on the screen, and we can have a conversation about a lot of topics that we're talking today. But definitely from where I'm standing, I can't see any faces. I'm honestly just talking to myself on a screen. So there might be some moments where I ask something and I just realize, oh, no one's talking back. Let me give a short introduction of myself before we get started. My name is Henry Schwan. I come from the great state of Georgia. I live in the suburbs near Atlanta. I'm currently 18 years old, turning 19 end of this month, August 30th. So if you send me a happy birthday message, I would definitely reply, and I would definitely appreciate that. I went to a public high school called Lambert High School. It was a pretty big school. We had around 720 kids, nearly 800 kids in our class, and around over 3,000 students at the whole school. In high school, I was involved with a couple different clubs, mainly student governments, which really allowed me to get involved with leadership in community service. I was involved with FBLA, which stands for the Future Business Leaders of America, which is a business education organization. And I was also involved with the debate team. So those are just some of the activities I was involved with. In the fall, I was planning on attending Harvard University to study economics, but that has been pushed back. So I'm opting for a gap year, and I will be part of the class of 2025. So this shirt is actually wrong. And if anybody has any questions about my reasons for a gap year or what I'm doing, I can answer that in the Q&A section. I want to give a couple shout outs before diving into the contents. First and foremost, I want to thank my mom for spearheading and organizing all of this. None of this would have been possible without her help and her support. And her and I don't always see eye to eye on everything, but I want to let you know that you truly mean the world to me, and I know I wouldn't have been able to accomplish a lot of what I've done without you. So thank you for that. She's sitting next to me, so that's why I was looking to the right. Next, I want to give a shout out to all the IEs out there who have been so generous and willing to spread the news of this webinar in all the Weixin. You guys have a lot of faith in me, and I'll try not to disappoint you guys. I also want to thank my family for supporting me in everything I do. And honestly, a lot of the insight that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today, I have learned from them. So that's my mom and dad, both sets of my grandparents, and even my little sister sometimes. Next, I want to thank God, because I realize that everything that I've been able to accomplish is by the grace of God. And I've been protected, I've been directed, and I've been corrected. And I know that I haven't always stuck with him, but he always stuck with me. So definitely want to thank God for being here today. And finally, I want to thank all 1,300 or nearly 800 of you guys on the Zoom call so far for taking the time to come here, whether that be forced or not. I know that school is right around the corner and there's a lot of uncertainty, especially if you live in the United States. And I don't blame you. I personally took the easy way out and opted for a gap year. But I know that there's a lot of questions about school right now, and hopefully this webinar makes that a lot easier. And there is a Q&A box that you can send questions directly to me. No funny business though. I only want serious questions. I love memes and GIFs, but for the purpose of this webinar, let's try to keep that to a minimum. Thank you very much. So that's all I have before. Let's dive in. So this is a quick breakdown of the 4 topics we're going to be talking about tonight. Topic 1 is improving study efficiency. Topic 2 is controlling usage for video games, social media, cell phones. Topic 3 is how do we build up a good relationships with our friends, our peers, our teachers, our administrators, our counselors, our professors. And topic 4 is really about getting out of your comfort zone and really discovering your leadership styles and really trying to impact your community. Just a quick note is that some of the insights I'm about to share, most of them I haven't been able to master myself 100% yet, but I'm striving to get there, and all of these points have logic behind it, and you guys can pick and choose which points you like, but hopefully you guys find something useful. So with that said, let's dive in to the first topic, which is trying to improve your study efficiency. So the next couple of slides, I'll be giving 5 or 6 different suggestions with a lot of supporting examples and a lot of evidence. That's a debate term that we use from some studies, from some professors to really back up each of these examples, each of these suggestions, I'm sorry. So how do we improve study efficiency? First thing I'll say is pay attention in class. This seems really self-explanatory, but there's a lot of reasonings behind this. First and foremost, my grandma told me this when I was in like 6th grade, and I was like, there's no way that's possible. But she said, if you miss 10 minutes in class, like where you zoned out, that takes an hour at school to make that up. And reflecting back on my 4 years in high school, that holds true in a lot of situations. So the example that comes to mind when I say that was my AP Physics class. I took AP Physics my sophomore year, which is 10th grade, and I had an 8th period. So it was my last class of the day. And every single time I walked into class, I was already exhausted from the previous 7 classes earlier that day. So a lot of the times I fell asleep sometimes, or even if I had my eyes open, I wasn't engaged in the classroom. And what I found was I struggled immensely with that class. I've always struggled with science a little bit, but definitely the 10 minutes I missed took a lot longer than that 1 hour to make up, because physics is a lot of concepts. And if you miss the root understanding of why that concept holds true, you're going to have a lot of troubles with the tests and quizzes. But you don't have to take it from me. This is a proven fact that paying attention in class boosts your efficiency and boosts your academic achievements. So this is a study by 2 teachers who conducted a test with nearly 200 English education students. And it was reported at the International Conference on Education and Social Sciences. And they were trying to connect the relationship between attention recall and academic achievement. And they found that students who were a lot more focused in class had a significantly higher GPA. So if you don't want to listen to me, you can listen to these proven researchers. So with that said, what are some ways to make sure that we pay attention in class? A couple suggestions come to mind. First of all, sit in the front of the classroom. That's the biggest thing you can do. Because when you sit in the front, you're more likely to ask questions. And a professor from Duke University said that students who sit in the front are often more in tune with the teacher, which translate into taking more notes, participating more in class discussions, and maintaining better study habits. And all of that translates into better grades. So all of this is connected. Some other things you can do is really just be aware of what distracts you in class and trying to steer clear of those distractions. Whether that be, you have a good friend in the same classroom and you realize, I love this guy, but maybe I shouldn't sit next to him in class. We can always hang out outside of class. So maybe it's not the best idea to sit next to them. And I've definitely fallen into that category many times. And most importantly, your cell phone. This is definitely the bane of staying attentive in class, is going on social media and replying to texts every once in a while. So what I've learned and what I've done is to turn off my phone or put in airplane mode. And so I just won't be tempted to check my text messages or my social media. Next suggestions: finish as much work in class as you possibly can. So this is something that has worked for me very, very, very well. So most students, when I look around in class, so sometimes after a lecture or presentation by the teacher, you might have 5 or 10 minutes left in class, and then the teacher might say, hey, do whatever you want, right? And most of the students around me would often just pull out their phone, do a lot of the social media stuff, or just start talking to each other. And what I've learned is that 5 to 10 minute time is extremely precious. So some of the things I've done is, one, to review notes, which is great because if there was something in that lecture that I found confusing, it offers me an immediate opportunity to talk to the teacher right there and then about something that he just talked about, and ask any clarification questions if needed. And that really reinforces that content material a lot better than if you reviewed that note, later that night at home or even a week later. And there's a lot of memory recall philosophies that fall into that. But the most important thing, and the part I really like about this slide, is finishing your homework in the last 5 to 10 minutes. And this works really well with math courses, I've found, because math courses, they tell you the concepts right there, and usually right afterwards, they give you some problems to practice with it. And taking those concepts and practicing right there and then allows you to be extremely effective and efficient with finishing your homework. So I found that, especially with pre-calculus and AP calculus, that when I was able to finish the homework in 5 or 10 minutes, which would usually take, closer to 30 or even 45 minutes if I waited to take it at home. So in 10th grade in pre-calculus, I don't think I did a single day of homework at home. And I still ended with a good grade, which really proves this concept in my opinion. Next slide. What about bad teachers? So the first thing I'll say is that bad teachers are inevitable, and you're gonna have one at some point. If you haven't, consider yourself lucky. But in high school and definitely college, you're gonna find some teachers that I don't know if I would consider them bad per se. It's just that they have a different teaching style that may not align to yours. So what you really need to do is to adjust your learning styles to really compensate for the teacher's difference. So a couple different ideas come to mind to help with this problem. First things first, if you really can't listen to lectures, read the textbooks. I've heard from numerous friends throughout high school that the textbook was actually a better teacher than the actual teacher. And sometimes it saves you a lot of time because reading a 5 or 10 minute textbook probably, is the equivalent of a whole 50-minute lecture, right? And textbooks are written by professionals who have been in the field for a much longer time, usually. For me, personally, I am not the biggest fan of textbooks, and I've always had a hard time reading them. So these next three suggestions have helped me more. First and foremost is friends, study groups. I'll talk more about that in the next slide. Online resources have always been extremely helpful. Like I mentioned earlier, science has been a difficult subject for me. So I often look to Flipping Physics, which is a YouTube channel for physics, and the Organic Chemistry Tutor, which is a great, fantastic YouTube channel for AP Chemistry. And those two channels really carried me. And I know that outside of those two channels, Khan Academy is a very popular and very common resource that a lot of students use. Outside of online resources, neighboring teachers. So I have highly recommend this if it's possible. And the example I'll give is with AP World History, yes. So I didn't have exactly the best teacher, I'm sorry. And if you know a little bit about the AP exam for AP World History, there is a multiple choice version, portion, and there is a writing essay portion. And my teacher was great in preparing us for the multiple choice version, but we really didn't do any practice with the writing portion until literally about 2 weeks out. And I was freaking out because all the other world history teachers were, had spent great portion of the year, having the students practice with the writing. So I was panicking going into the exam. And what I did was I knew that my student council advisor was a AP US history teacher, and she had been teaching it for many years. And I found out that the structure between US history and world history is exactly the same, especially the writing portion. So I just hit her up and I asked, hey, would you mind teaching me the format of how I should be writing these essays? And she literally was like, because we had already had a connection before, she told me to come into her class after school one day, and for the just 1 hour period, she taught me more than, the teacher had taught me basically the whole year in terms of writing. And thanks to that, I was able to get a 5 on the world history exam. And I could not have done it without learning the basics from my US history teachers. So if you have resources from other teachers who are, that you heard are better teachers, definitely hit them up. And finally, the last thing I'll say is that sometimes you just got to grind through it. If you don't have the best teacher. I know California kids are really infamous for this, that I hear that they self-study literally everything. So they would actually be a much better teacher about how to self-study than I am. But those are some suggestions I have. Suggestion 4 is study with your friends. The general gist of this slide is my recommendation to form study groups with super smart, ambitious students, meet regularly over pizza or coffee, not just the night of the exam. So what I did was I would often do what I call coffee dates, where I would invite a couple close friends who are, the smart and ambitious kind of students. And we just went to Starbucks or we went to Dunkin' and, we just grinded it out for a couple hours. And I know a lot of people do this. So there's a couple caveats, I would say. First things first, I would not do more than 1 or 2 other students to study with. From my experience, I learned this the hard way. So when I was studying for the AP Physics exam, I was like, hey, let me just get the smartest kids I could possibly, let me get my good friends, 5 or 6 of them, to come over and, maybe we'll have fun, maybe we'll study, whatnot. So they came over, we're sitting right here on this table, and we just talked, and we just wasted 3 hours. And mind you, this was about like a week before the AP physics exam. And it was fun in the moment, but afterwards I realized, oh shoot, like we got nothing done and I got an AP exam coming up. So I was like freaking out. So I was like, never again am I doing that. So limit it to 1 to 2 students, so there's no room for distractions. and there's only one conversation going on at a time, because when you have 5 or 6 people, you have so many different conversations, it's hard to focus. Another thing I would say is definitely and it's important to find specific types of people. They don't always have to be your friends. People that you're familiar with, or people in your class who you know have a good grades and are motivated to study. And the same philosophy goes with choosing partners for a group project, right? You don't always have to choose your friends if you know that you guys are just gonna goof off. And for me, that's what I've done the past couple of years. Like you're still gonna be friends outside of that. But in the grand scheme of things, friendships versus failing a project, you make the decision. So during these study groups, what we would often do is, for me, the most helpful part was clarification on confusing concepts. This is where having the more motivated students really is instrumental, because if you have people who are, lackadaisical students and you ask them a question, they're like, I don't know. Like, what's the point of that study group then? So you definitely want to surround yourself with peers who are smarter than you, so you can learn from them instead. So a lot of so I would often go into the study group with a list of like 10 questions I would want to knock out, and asking them the questions also helps them also, right? Other than clarifications, you can test each other, quiz each other on some of the content or some of the knowledge, but the clarification part is really key. Let's go into suggestion number 5, which is designated study spots. So my suggestion is find a low activity spot, hopefully outside of the house. And the reason why I say this is that there's a lot of noise that goes on within the house, whether that's your parents making dinner, or you have annoying little sister who's just, sorry, not annoying, a little sister who, is making a lot of noise. Or it's just if there's no noise even, it's almost even worse, because it's just so tempting. Like, I see my bed and I'm studying in my room and I see my bed, like, I just want to take a nap, So definitely recommend getting outside of the house. The 2 places I would recommend studying is, 1, the library. And for me, I go to the same exact spot. And lucky for me is that the public library, is right next to my school. It's like 2 minutes away. So I would just go there straight after school and grind out my homework and come back for dinner. And my parents will tell you, since I started driving, that they don't usually see me anymore because I'm literally always at the library or the clubhouse. And the reason why I would actually recommend the clubhouse over the library is that there's a lot of people at the library. And especially if you have one that's close to your school, you're gonna see a lot of classmates. And especially nights where, I know I have a final or a midterm tomorrow, I see a friend and, you can't help but talk to each other. And that 10 minutes turns into 20 minutes, and that 20 minutes turns into an hour. And you're like, where did the hour go? So I would definitely, if you can avoid those friends, that sounds bad, but, for the sake of studying, try to avoid them. But that's why I would actually recommend the clubhouse. This is so underrated. And everyone who hears me recommend the clubhouse, after I explain to them the reasoning, they're always like, oh, that's so smart. Why didn't I think about that? So let me give you a pitch, is that a clubhouse offers the same exact benefits as a library without the harms, right? It's quiet, you're away from your house, but you don't have as many people, and it's probably even closer. I know that not everyone here has a clubhouse, so ignore this part. But I want to share with you guys a story about how much that clubhouse meant to me. My community clubhouse is that I would literally camp out there every single day going into AP exams. My junior year, I was taking 6 AP exams, so I was, I had a lot on my plate. And starting about a month out in March, the exam was in early May, I would go there and just stay there for whole days at end. And I would literally bring my lunch there, so I could eat lunch there. I would take naps. They had a very nice sofa, so I would fall asleep accidentally, just absolutely exhausted from studying. And something funny was the tennis coach at the clubhouse. He has an office there. he would often walk by. He would always just see me, just passed out on the couch. And, one time he asked like, hey, like, do you live here? And I was like, no, like who lives in a clubhouse? And he was like, okay, because I see you here literally every single day. So I just kind of assumed that you sleep here overnight too. And I was like, no. Which is just really funny because I think that just shows like how much time I spent at that clubhouse, probably more than I spent at my house during those couple months. So preparing for exams, and also when I was writing my college applications, I would also be there literally all day and all night. And the tennis coach was like, with the amount of time you're spending here, you better get into Harvard. And I was applying to Yale at the time, which I got rejected from. So, but I guess it worked out. The man's psychic. The last thing I'll say about studying efficiently is planner. This is the biggest suggestion I can give on this topic, and the one I feel most strongly about. So on the right here, you see an example from a week in December last year, and I'll talk about the specifics, but there's a couple things about planner that's so powerful. First, organization. I carry this planner, and people have like Google planners and reminders on their phone. I always prefer a physical copy, and I carry this around in my book bag or with me everywhere I go. I put in homework, projects, tests, assignments. As soon as they're assigned, as soon as the teacher tells us, I pull this planner out and write it in. So I've made sure that I don't forget about it, right? And what I found is that sometimes I'll think, hey, like that's such a big thing. Like if I got a big homework, I'll definitely remember it. I don't have to write in my planner. Forgot about it. So I literally have become dependent on this planner. And a couple months ago, I think like I misplaced it, and I was like freaking out because like this is literally my life. Like I'm so lost without this, which is maybe not the best thing to do, but I think it just goes to illustrate the power of the planner. And I think that for me, what it's allowed me to do is for small things, I'm able to finish it right away. But for bigger projects and for big tests coming up, I'm able to prioritize, plan, and have it scheduled. And the second thing is time management, right? So I don't just put stuff from school on here. I also put extracurriculars or social gatherings or parties on here too. So if I have a big conference from FBLA or student council coming up, I know that I'm going to be gone those couple days, so I can let my teachers know prior, like, hey, I'm going to be gone on Friday. Can I take the test on Monday, or can I take it Friday morning before I leave, or should I take it Thursday? And I'm able to figure something out with the teachers, and they absolutely love it when you're able to plan ahead also. And the last thing I'll say is that this really prevents you from procrastinating too, because if I know that I don't have time because I have another event coming up, I'm more likely to finish this homework earlier. So let me give you an example. So on the screen here, on the Tuesday, you see I had a Georgia Tech final makeup at 6 p.m., but I also had a band concert at 7 p.m. And since I was at Georgia Tech, I knew I wouldn't be able to make it back in time. So I called ahead, told my band director, hey, I have a huge final that I can't push back anymore. Like, what can we do to resolve this? And he was like, that's totally fine. Like, we'll just do we'll just have you do an audition or something like that on another day. On Wednesday, you see I had 2 tests that day, and that was the day after my GT final. And I knew I couldn't cram studying for 2 tests in a day. So I went ahead and talked to my AP Stat teacher saying, hey, like, I just took a GT final, and I don't think I absolutely love your class, and I want to do the best I can, but I just don't think I can give my best performance if I take it Wednesday. And he was like, oh, that's absolutely fine. Just come in during lunch on Thursday. I was like, bet, awesome. On Friday, you see that I had an FBLA or DECA. I was going to go see a Hawks game with a couple friends. And on Saturday, I had an all-state audition. So I knew not to stay out too late on Friday night at the Hawks game because I had to get up early the next morning. And on Saturday, you see that I had my Rice application and a scholarship due. So I knew that since, going into that week from a couple weeks before, I knew that I would be busy on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. And I knew that I had a huge application due on Sunday. So what I would do is try to finish the rough drafts and knock out most of the essays beforehand, before that week, so that I'm able to focus on the other things. So I think this just illustrates a couple of small points of why this planner was so powerful for me. All right, that took a lot of time. Oh shoot, I need to speed things up. Topic 2, controlling usage for phones, social media, and games. Start with games. All right, so I don't play a lot of games myself, but I'm speaking for some of my friends who I know do play a lot of games. And what I've seen them do is that if you have a healthy balance, it's totally doable to have good academics, be a gamer, though you might sacrifice your social life a little bit. And for me, I think a big reason why I didn't really get into gaming much on the second point is I saw more value in socializing with real people and not just fake people. I'm sorry, the gamers don't attack me right now. But I remember a friend who was like, man, I have so many friends. And I was like, oh, well, that's awesome. And he was like, yeah, but most of them are over the Discord server. And I was like, what? Not shaming them or anything, but I just don't see how much value that adds. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll admit I could be wrong in certain situations. On the first point, in quarantine, gaming has definitely increased. I'll admit I started gaming myself. Any Minecraft players out there? Maybe, maybe not. Hypixel Bed Wars. But for me, gaming is, again, more of a social thing because me and my friends, we get in the same server, so we're able to talk to each other. And like, I'm not a very good gamer, but they are. And the reason why I do it is so I can stay connected with them. Like, I don't actually like the actual gaming aspect, but I like the fact that I'm able to stay in touch with them. And I think that as long as you're cognizant of, what you're losing, what you could be losing out on, and you still choose to do gaming, 100% support your decision. But I just want you to be cognizant that there are other, values out there. So my suggestion for the parents out here on how to control gaming is a couple of things. First, control. And I think this is more important for games like Minecraft, League of Legends, Fortnite, where it's membership based, so you can't really delete the game immediately, which you still can, but it's a little bit harder to do. So for those people who play those games, my suggestion is prioritize, right? You really need to develop a sense of self-control to finish the homework first before you pick up the games, and which is unfortunately very hard to do. And I used to play a lot of games myself when I was younger, and I would pick up my iPad and I was like, oh, let me just take a 20-minute break from studying. And that 20-minute turns into 2 hours, just like snap of a finger, right? So that's just something you have to decide for yourself, whether you have the self-control to do that. My suggestion is just delete the game immediately. Don't hate me for this, but I went through this myself, who had to delete, I chose to delete all the games on my iPad and on my phone. And I used to play MapleStory, if anybody remembers that. And what I found was that there was more meaningful things out there, right? I really had, by deleting those games, I was able to step out and see the bigger picture. And I was able to see what was more important in the grand scheme of things. And I really think that this step should be students. Students should be making this decision and not parents. Because parents, if you tell a student to delete the game, they will fight you and they would reinstall that game. Let's keep going. Cell phones, awesome. Love this point. Huge distractions. And my suggestion here, when you're trying to study or when you're trying to do something meaningful, first, just put it on airplane mode. And if you look on the graphic on the left, this comes from the Harvard Business Review. And they did a study that found that even the buzzing of the cell phone, like if you have a cell phone close to you, even if you don't look at it, the fact that it buzzes takes your attention away. And what was really significant about this review from the Harvard Business Review is that just having your phone near you can distract you and negatively affect your efficiency and accuracy. Second option, just put your phone in a separate room. I have a friend named Raymond. He also goes to Harvard. I don't know why I felt the need to say that. He went to Harvard like that. give some credit or anything, but sorry, ignore that. But yeah, so Raymond puts his phone in a separate room, and which is unfortunate because every time I text him, he doesn't reply until 9 p.m. So I'm actually not the biggest fan, but that is very effective. If you know you like this is a huge important homework, I would just put your phone in a separate room. And a big complaint a lot of people have with putting your phones in a separate room is that what if I have an important text or I have an important call come in? A couple things I'll say about that is first, if it's truly important, like I feel like you should have been able to plan for it beforehand, right? Like if you knew you had like an interview call, that should be on your planner, Going back to the planner idea. So you really shouldn't be missing really important things. But second, if it's like on instantaneous or it wasn't planned, you know, from my experience, that rarely happens. And honestly, I haven't seen it really affect anyone. And most importantly, I think the cost just outweighs the benefits. I think the cost of you losing distraction and not being efficient and being less accurate on your homework, on your quizzes, on your preparation is more important than you maybe missing an important text from a friend. And if you're gonna fight me on this, you can always just check your phone during study breaks or whatnot. Finally, the last thing on cell phones is, again, I think parents, a lot of parents try to force their students to limit the screen time. And I'm gonna be careful with what I say here because every parent has their own parenting style and every parent understands their kids best. So all the students out here, listen to your parents before you listen to me and always defer to their judgments because I think they have your best intentions in mind, even though it might not always seem like it. So what I would say for the parents is that I think limiting cell phone use at a young age is a little bit more effective. You know, as someone myself who had my, you know, screen time limited to about 2 hours a week, this was back in like 2007. What I found was that it was kind of counterproductive because every time my parents would leave the house, I would take that chance to, you know, use as much technology as I possibly can. And even if I had nothing to do on that technology, I just wanted to use it because I knew that time was so precious and that I was only limited. So I found it kind of counterproductive. And eventually I grew out of it, right? And I see my sister going through that right now. And good thing for her, and this is what I recommend for parents, is that keep your children busy with other extracurriculars and other activities and, you know, more meaningful activities so that they don't even have any time. That's the philosophy that my mom has taken with my sister, and I think it's been extremely effective. Social media, I gotta hurry up. Quarantine has definitely increased usage on social media. I was reading an article from the Wall Street Journal, and they reported that, you know, since quarantine, the pandemic started, you know, the average teenager ages 12 to 18 have used an average of at least 4 to 5 hours on social media, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever it is. And the same, you know, policy philosophies apply here. One, trying to control it, and two, deleting social media. You know, it's a little bit less time than gaming, but it still has a potential to waste a lot of time. And with deleting, you know, I used to be a huge on TikTok, right? I asked a girl to prom on TikTok and, you know, I was completely addicted. Unfortunately, that was also the time where I was about to take my AP exams. And, you know, I would use TikTok during, you know, study breaks when I was preparing for the exams, where I'd realize I'm just wasting way too much time on this because my 10 minutes turned into 30-minute quick. And that time adds up. So I made that conscious decision to delete the app myself. And afterwards, I really felt, honestly, so freed from that burden, which is strange to say, but definitely holds true. But I won't say that many negative things about social media because I definitely think it has so much potential to connect. And honestly, for me, every single conference, every single event, so connecting on social media has been such a big networking opportunity. And honestly, I'm gonna give myself a shameless plug. Follow me on Instagram. My username is _Henry Schwan. So connect with me, and I'd love to talk to any students here afterwards about this. That was a shameless plug, yeah. Topic 3, awesome. Building up relationships with friends and teachers. Oh gosh, I'm gonna go over time. This is a huge topic for me because I think it's so important. I think connections rule the world. And I was talking with a friend the other day, and he made an interesting observation that someone who's not as smart, or two people, one is not as smart but can play their connections correctly, will be just as successful, if not more successful, than someone who is much smarter than them but aren't able to play their connections correctly. And I definitely think that holds true in a lot of situations. But I'm going to talk about why relationships are important and how to build them up with teachers, administrators / counselors, and finally your friends. First is teachers. A couple just really basic importance. Obviously, they write your recommendation letters, and I would recommend you to keep a list of potential teachers to help that will write your recommendation letters. But more importantly, teachers talk to each other, right? Words get around, like in the teacher break room. If you're someone that stood out in their class or you did something kind of crazy, they're going to talk about you, and word's going to get around to other teachers from around the school. But I think having good connections with teachers is also important to help you, with your course. I mentioned earlier, I talked to my stat teacher about moving my midterm a day back. And, he was one of the teachers I've worked with in student council for many years, and he knew exactly how busy I was. And because he knew that I was a responsible student who would definitely not ask to postpone the midterm unless it wasn't absolutely necessary, he wouldn't have done it. So I think, by pushing that midterm back, it definitely helped me with my course load. And finally, most importantly, I think teachers are great mentors. I have, 2 to 3 teachers I was very close with throughout high school that I still keep in contact, constant communication with, even now that I've graduated. So how do you build up the relationship with your teachers? A couple of things. First, talk to them outside of class. Stay a couple minutes, 1 or 2 minutes after class. What I would like to do is maybe crack a joke about something they said or ask them a couple clarification questions. This all ties back to, reviewing your notes with the 10 minutes after class. Another thing is office hours. And especially during quarantine, like a lot of professors are just bored at office hours because nobody shows up, or very little people show up. And this is a great chance to go there. You don't always have to ask them about questions. Maybe ask them a question or two and just talk to them. I remember my freshman year, I had a question about math. And we had these study halls where we called it lunch and learn, where teachers all from different departments were all in the library, and you can just talk to the teachers. And so my teacher for my specific math class wasn't there, but another math teacher was. And we were just talking, and we talked about other stuff, not just about math, and we got really friendly. And it turns out that teacher was the math department head. So she's the head of all the math teachers, which I had no idea going in, which is crazy because a couple years later, during my senior year, my final year in high school, I was applying for the Georgia Tech math class. And she was a sponsor teacher for the Georgia Tech math class. And she definitely gave me suggestions. And that would not have happened if I hadn't built up that relationship going beforehand. Another thing I would recommend is just getting to know their interests, know which clubs that they're involved with, or know what they like outside of school. Teachers aren't supposed to friend you on social media, but a couple cool ones will. Like I know that my stat teacher is a huge sports guy. So we would often talk about, which football teams that, we like, or which, basketball teams. And we're even in the same fantasy league, which goes to prove that how close we are. Final thing I'll say about teachers is that it's the same thing with creating a relationship with your boss. And, there's nothing wrong with building up good relationships. Others might criticize you that, hey, like stop kissing up. But I think as long as you're genuine about your approach to it, I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's go into counselors and administrators. I think same thing here. They're so important, just being mentors, being recommendations. And honestly, they know the ins and outs about high school. They offer a lot of guidance about how the school works. Or if you need help out anything, like if you have a club, like I was involved with a huge club, and sometimes I would want to plan a school-wide event. And because I already knew these administrators and counselors, they're always there to help me. So how do you build up the relationships? A couple things. again, offered to help out around the school. So my school has an ambassador program. I would definitely recommend other students to check if they also have an ambassador program. And I'm assuming most people here are Chinese, I would definitely leverage that. Especially if you're in a big public high school, there's going to be a lot of new students. And oftentimes we get a lot of international students. So I've actually been called down a couple of times to translate for an international student who came from China. And 我的中文不是特别好，但是 I'm able to do basic communication. And at the very least, it shows them I'm willing to help out. And second thing, just talk to them during lunch. So my counselor also happened to be my student council advisor, and I also took one of her classes. So I knew her in 3 different contexts, and she is honestly my second mom. And we've traveled together. We went to Wisconsin, Michigan. Okay, I'm blanking on it. Minnesota, that's what it was. Minnesota. Like we literally flew together. We drove all around the state, and every single day during lunch, we would just sit in her office and just talk and eat. And there was about 5 to 7 of us at every single given day. Obviously, a lot of it is because she was awesome, but I think I've definitely heard stories of other students who just eat lunch literally with their counselors or with the teacher. And if you're cool with them, they'll definitely allow you to do that. And that's a great way to just talk and build up relationships. Final thing is with your peers. A couple different topics. This is a pretty important slide. Connections with upperclassmen is ultra important. They tell you about the high school ins and outs. For me, that was my upperclassman I had a strong connection with. His name was Royce, and he was a state president of FBLA when I was a freshman. And he really taught me what it meant to, be a leader in that sense, but really helped me navigate high school as a freshman. And he taught me which teachers I want for which classes, how do you study? And sometimes they would even share with you some of their previous notes that they took with that class. And especially with Royce, since he was a club officer, by building connection with upperclassmen, they can vouch for you. So when you decide to run for a club position, having them as someone to vouch for you is huge. Absolutely, almost guarantees you, almost. So that's definitely a big part there. And I think, especially for me going to college, for me, it's building relationships with seniors because they're going to be working full time afterwards. And those are the people who review your applications when you apply for jobs. So there's so many benefits with, having connections with your peers. A couple suggestions with, how to build up relationships with peers. And you might think you don't need this, but I think there's a lot of stuff here which will make sense. First and foremost, be intentional, but don't be forceful. I was an upperclassman, and I can immediately tell when someone just wants to, talk to me because they want to get something out of me, right? And they're literally, when I'm talking to them, they're literally trying to sell themselves to me. I'm just talking to them like, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? And they start talking about their SAT score, and I'm like, man, no one cares. Just be chill. And I see this a lot when kids are campaigning for events. They literally come up and be like, hey, how are you? I'm Henry. You should totally vote for me, blah, 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 blah. And it's it's so fake, and it's just so ingenuine. And it's just don't do it. And I think a way to be intentional but not forceful is, for me, I use humor a lot. I try to lighten the tension. And I just try to get to know them for who they are, not because I want to use them for something. And this next point about service and thoughtfulness is so critical. I think for me, my Christian faith and my background, I'm told to be quick to give and, be of service to my friends and my peers and my neighbors. I read a book the other day about how selfish people have gotten over the past since the beginning of time. And it was a study about researchers tracked the phone conversations of 500 phone calls. And they noticed that the number 1 most used word was the word I. And I think that just goes to prove how much people, only care about themselves. And, I want this. I want you to do this. I want you to, be of value to me. But I think that if we really want to make friends, we need to put ourselves to do things for others. We need to do things that take time, that take energy, that take efforts. And really small example that I try to do for my friends is just finding out their birthdays. And every single year I would send them a card or make them a post on social media, just trying to celebrate them. And that's just a super easy way. So yeah, huge point there. Last thing, don't make any enemies. This should be honestly self-explanatory, but this is a huge point also. My grandma always taught me this. My grandpa, I think, he said, every one enemy will turn into 100. So I've seen so many situations about where one comment about someone will literally make the difference between, them getting the club officer position or them, getting the vote for a campaigning. And I think this quote at the bottom here is, okay, my internet is unstable. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I see some thumbs up. Awesome, thanks. And I love this quote from Ben Franklin. He says, "I will speak ill of no man and speak good of everyone I know." And I think that's so important. And for some background, Ben Franklin was one of the most tact and diplomatic men who has ever graced this earth. He is the master of relationships, and it's so true. But even though it's so self-explanatory, we still have so many students that trash talk others or gossip about others. Honestly, if you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say it. Keep silence. Because word's gonna get around that, hey, Henry was trash talking Georgie, and that, word's gonna get around to Georgie, and it's gonna, that one enemy is gonna turn into 100. So yeah. Last thing about building relationships. Oh shoot, 9:51. Be genuine. Don't just make connections with people that you think will be useful to you. I already emphasized this so much, but I can't understate this. I want to give a short story, but I know we're running short on time. So I'm friends with the lunch ladies at my school, and how that relationship started was my freshman year. I saw that one of the lunch ladies, and I could tell she was bored with her job, and seeing her, I just told myself like, hey, I'm going to try to make her smile. So when she handed me the food, I was like, thank you very much, ma'am. I just want to say that the pizza at the school is some of the best pizza I've ever had. And immediately a huge smile came across her face. And she told me that nobody had ever said anything or complimented pizza before, which is crazy because the lunch ladies literally worked so hard to be creative with the pizza. There's not much you can do with school food, but they tried to make the pizza as unique as possible. Like they would make potato fry pizza or nacho pizza or even hot dog pizza. And no one ever appreciated that, or no one ever, thanked them or recognized that. So, and then when I told this story to some of my friends, one of them asked, what did you want to get out of her? And that really upset me because I think that's the problem with our school and with our culture is this me culture, right? Is that everything has to benefit us somehow. Like how often do we talk to someone because we genuinely want to get to know them for who they are? And if we're so selfish that we can't radiate a little happiness and pass on a little bit of honest appreciation without trying to get something out of the other person in return, like we're not gonna succeed in the real world. We're not gonna build any lasting relationships. Like, yeah, I wanted something. I wanted something priceless and I got it. I got the feeling I did something for her without, her doing anything in return. And that feeling flows and sings in my memory long after that incident has happened. And honestly, she has still been a great relationship since then. Like I was late a couple times to lunch and, she slid me a couple fries here and there and she let me in when I was late. So yeah, I mean, don't just make connections with people that you think will be useful to you. And I had another friend who's in college right now. In companies, everyone undervalues the HR departments, human resources. They're kind of like the joke of the whole, all the finance majors make fun of them, things like that. Like they say HR is not a real job. But my friend, made an effort to be friends with the people in HR. And he didn't do it because he wanted anything out of them. He just, he thought the people were cool and he talked to them. And a couple months later, he got a phone call from that guy in HR of a huge major company. And he had his spot open up at a major exclusive event, a networking event, and a lot of the big CEOs of tech firms, consulting firms were there, and because he was friends with the guy in HR, he got to go there and talk to some of these crazy executives. Yeah. Topic 4. I'm sorry, I've been speaking too much. There's so much to say. All right, I'll try to make this one short as possible. This one should be a little bit shorter. Stepping out of your comfort zone. How do you step out of comfort zone? It's really one step at a time. It's, you do what's comfortable to you, but still at the same time, be proactive. And I think a major point is working with older students and teachers really help you. Like I mentioned Royce earlier, he really showed me the ins and outs of what to do in high school. And honestly, they're gonna guide you and they're gonna instill confidence in you. And I think that's the most important part, is confidence to do more, to step more out of your comfort zone, to tread more waters. And just be prepared to fail. You're gonna have a lot of practice along the ways. Like I definitely organized a couple events where through student council where I wasn't sure if I was ready to do this, but because I had organized, I was in charge of smaller subcommittees co-led by another upperclassman. I felt more confidence building my way up. So it's like a staircase. Leadership. I think this is the last slide. Maybe, I think so. Leadership. How do you get? Okay. There's a couple points here. The first thing with leadership and getting positions is that again, goes back to point 3 about having relationship with other students and with teachers. And at least at my school, because I go to a big public high school, a lot of these leadership roles and campaigns are really decided off of popularity, which is unfair, but it's the truth. And what I've realized is that it's not always the most well-known person that wins or the most popular kid that wins. It's the most well-liked kid that wins, right? You don't have to be most well-known, but like I said, word gets around, right? Like if I'm about to cast my vote for an election and I don't know about, this kid, Jorge, turn to my friend and hey, have you heard of this kid? Yeah, I mean, he's super cool. He's nice. He's willing to help out with people. Done, check, vote. And again, that all ties back to service and helping people, and just being selfless in what you do, and doing things, again, not to get something out of others, but because you want to truly get to know them for who they are. And, faith is a big part of that, and just be willing to help out those people who need the help, that you're not going to get something out of them. But actually, this is an interesting point because I heard a workshop the other day. And I think this person worked in the Department of Education, and she said something along the lines of, by helping other people, you're also helping yourself. So in his mind, the most selfish thing he could do is to help others, because you receive so much, gratification, you receive so much development within yourself. That you are helping, like how you just get a nice feeling when you're helping others, when you're of value and of service to other people. I think that's what he was referring to. Last thing, responsibility and reliability. This is hard for a lot of people because we all have egos, and when we join an organization, or when we start a job or start an internship, we automatically think, hey, I deserve to work on this huge project because of my credibilities, because of my background, because I went to this Ivy League university. And that mindset is just so false, because in order for you to be given larger projects, you need to be able to execute smaller tasks well first. And by doing small tasks well, you're able to build trust with your manager or with the sponsors or with the upperclassmen who are in charge of the club, that, hey, you're a reliable person, that you're responsible. So only after then would they be able to give you more important tasks. And I'll share one last personal story, which was when I served as a state student council representative, we were in charge of a huge convention, and it was about, I think it was a week out of the convention, and we're doing one last run through, and I had come back from traveling the day before, and I think I was like sick or something. But anyways, I didn't notify them that I was sick, and the next day when I woke up, I was already 2 hours late from when we were supposed to meet up. And even like I could have made all the excuses I wanted to, like, hey, I wasn't feeling well, I was sick, I just came back from another state the day before. But it didn't matter because the trust was already broken without any prior communication. And it took so long for me to build back that trust. And that's all you need, one instance, and it's gone. And I think time management ties into that and showing up on time. We have the saying that, within student council, that being early is on time, being on time is late. If you're late, actually, I think that was it. If you're late, just don't come. But yeah, so that's definitely a big part of responsibility and reliability. Oh, yay! Woo! It's exactly 10. Awesome. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I see there's like probably hundreds of Q&A right now. Oh gosh. Do I have time to answer these?
You can tell the audience whoever wants to quit, they can quit, but if they want to stay, you can answer some of the Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it's 10 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm so sorry I warned you guys that I was gonna probably speak longer than what I had planned. But no one is obligated to stay by any means. And I definitely want to thank everyone for taking the time to come out tonight. Hopefully some of this was useful, maybe not. I'd love to stay in connection with all the students here. And I think most of the parents here can get connected to my mom somehow. So if you have any further questions or any specific questions, feel free to reach out to her or to me. You can follow me on Instagram, another shameless plug. But yeah, so again, thank you all for being here today. And I know we're all in different time zones, so no obligations at all. But I think I'll stay on for 15, 30 more minutes to answer as many questions as I can. There's a lot of questions right now. All right. Actually, I'll unshare my screen real quick. Okay. This is like intimidating, so many questions. Okay, a lot of personal questions. Oh, okay, this is recorded. So if anybody wants to look at this again afterwards, yeah. Oh, 2 participants raised their hands. Can I unmute them? Okay, Galaxy, you are unmuted. No? Can I unmute her? Galaxy, I've asked you to unmute yourself. So I think you should be able to talk freely. Why are so many people saying happy birthday? My birthday is August 30th, but I definitely appreciate all the happy birthdays. How do I unmute these people? Oh, can I?
Just answer those questions.
Okay, let me answer all the questions on the chat first, or as many as I can. And then afterwards, I'll see if I can figure out a way to unmute people. I should really know this. When did I start taking leadership positions in school and the community? Great question from Alex H. Honestly, as soon as I stepped foot on campus, I don't think leadership positions means you need to have a title. In fact, I think a lot of the best leaders were people who, set a good example for the school and offered their service in ways, and they didn't need a title to do that. And I really respected those people. but definitely ninth grade for all the middle school students here, get started as fast as you can. Because, for me, I had a plan of, what I wanted to accomplish throughout high school. And like I said, I had a mentor, Royce, at the time, who, had already motivated me. Like he grabbed me from day one. He was like, "You're going to be a state officer one day." And I was like, don't know what that means, but okay, let's do it. But yeah, so since ninth grade. And if you, Alex H, you want to talk more about how to get leadership positions outside of some of the suggestions I gave in that presentation, feel free to DM me. A lot of people telling me I'm muted. Awesome. A lot of yeses, a lot of yeps. I'm letting people in. Oh, I think this was before it started. Okay, let me go to afterwards. Canada, yay! Don't forget me, my Alaskan boys. I got you. Michigan is the best. If there's a fourth zero, then it's 10,000. You're right. I am not good at math. A lot of happy birthdays. You guys are so supportive. I love it. Is gap year due to COVID? Partly, yes. Also partly because of Harvard's policies. But also I really just wanted to take this chance to recenter myself, get stronger in faith, and just really de-stress from the 4 years of high school. So my plans are to go to a Christian liberal arts camp. It's at Wheaton College, which is outside of Chicago. I mean, it's a camp, so it's like relatively unaffected by COVID. So I'll be talking to some of the professors. We have outdoors activity. We have service trips to go to help kids out, underprivileged kids in Costa Rica and Chicago. Don't know if that's still gonna happen, but yeah. And in China, I'm looking to travel to Taiwan to study Mandarin. So hopefully travel opens back up. And fun fact, Wheaton College is called the Harvard of Christian colleges with an 85% acceptance rate. So someone says I look better with long hair. Thank you. You speak Chinese like me. Awesome. Emma Wong's birthday is tomorrow. Happy early birthday, Emma. Your sister's name is Joy too. Yes, my sister's name is Joy. Airplane mode, what does that mean? Okay, good question. So when you open up your phone, there is a signal or a button up here that looks like an airplane. And when you click it, essentially what happens is you're not allowed to get any more notification. Your phone doesn't ring or buzz. And basically it's all turned off. The purpose was when you're on an airplane, you turn off all cellular, 4G, LTE, all that stuff, so it doesn't interfere with the plane. But also very helpful when you're trying to sleep or when you're trying to study. Cindy says hi. Ah, hey Cindy. Cindy is a classmate of mine. Should you listen to teachers that are horrible? That is from Jonathan. Yeah. Again, it's subjective to what you mean by horrible. Usually I think bad teachers are just teachers who have a different teaching style than what you're used to. I would definitely recommend you to try to adapt to their teaching style first. But if they are just plain horrible, I still would not recommend. Make it look like you're trying at least, because if it's anything that teachers hate more, it's a student who's obviously not paying attention, but also distracting their classmates. So that's a very easy way to get teachers to hate you, which is very important because if you're trying to at least end with an A in the class, probably want your teacher to like you. So yes, listen to your teachers. Maybe ineffective teachers. Okay, better wording. Name of the YouTube channel for AP Chemistry. It is called Organic Chemistry Tutor. Organic Chemistry Tutor. Highly recommend. Ryan said, how do you study with your study groups if your friends are not so bright? Well, that's what I was saying. You don't, maybe not always study with your friends. make a new friend that way. You know, find the smartest kids in your school or that you know, and you know, just hit them up. Hey, I know you're also studying for that, you know, that Lang exam that's on Thursday. Like you just want to go to Starbucks. I'll buy you Starbucks. You know, convince them to go with you. Emma called me out on Cali kids that need to study. Yes, you're right. How to build confidence from, I can't read that. What does that mean?
范语琪.
Fan Yuqi asked how to build confidence. Wait, that was part of my presentation. If you still have any more questions, feel free to hit me up. Oh, great question from Isabel. How can we form study groups during quarantine? Zoom calls. Hopefully you guys are better at Zoom than I am. That's definitely one way. Honestly, FaceTime or just calling them straight up. Like I said, I don't think study groups should be more than 1 or 2 other people. So if you literally just call them and, you know, talk about what's going on with the test, I think it's just as effective. I would say it's probably even more effective to call them virtually because you're more likely to get straight to the point and, you know, there's less distractions than if you were in person. So that's a potential benefit. What do I mean by clubhouse? Okay, so for my friends who are in China, a clubhouse is, so there's like a neighborhood and there's a community, and sometimes next to the tennis courts or so, there's a public space. So definitely in China, there's versions of this where it's just a general public space with Wi-Fi, so like cafes. Oh, Starbucks is a great place like that, where there's not as many distractions and you can just work on your homework. What activities did I do? From Helena, I mentioned I did student council, FBLA, debates. I also ran cross country for a couple of years. I played clarinet since 6th grade. I was decent at it. I was part of a youth wind symphony group throughout high school, and I always tried out for all states, things like that. Other activities, you know, I went to a couple summer programs. There's one at Yale called the Yale Young Global Scholars. Highly recommend for everyone. Whisper, the Whisper movement. I want to give this a quick plug. Is the Whisper movement essentially? It's a movement to try to create stronger community bonds at my school for students to have more genuine conversations and connections. And that's just in response to the high levels of competitions and the stress that students were going through. So that's something I've been very passionate about and something I joined because I think it really helped the community. So I also did I did some internships. I interned at a nonprofit called the International Leadership Foundation, and that was in DC. And that is an Asian American Pacific Islander nonprofit, and it was really cool. I lived by myself for, you know, roughly 2 months, which was a crazy, difficult, but really rewarding experience because it's not easy living by yourself. Every single college student can tell you that. I learned to cook. I learned to wash the dishes. I learned to buy grocery. I had to learn how to, you know, take the public transportation, washing machine, everything. It was tough. And I really miss the Chinese food back home. So all the students really appreciate all the food you have right now with your parents, for sure. Yeah. Did they sell these planners online or did they get it in school? Oh, yes. Great question from Jenny. So the planner I use is literally, okay, so it's so easy. Just go to Amazon and type in planners for academic school year 2020 to 2021. And it's like the top rated one with like the most reviews. But yeah, should be easy to find. Social life and gaming are combined. Yes. Good point from Justin Zhao. You can play with friends. But I do think a lot of those same points about trying to limit yourself when you have more important issues like a big test coming up. I think those same principles still apply here. Minecraft, yes, yes. Man, we have a lot of Minecraft players. We should get on Discord later. Let's play. Okay. Oh, good question from Truck. What about listening to music while doing work? I'm a little undecided on this one because I listen to music sometimes when I work. Most of my friends listen to classical music. I think that's probably the best kind of music to listen to because I think what's important is that you're not thinking about the music, right? You should be focusing on your homework. If the music you're listening to requires you to, if it makes you start dancing or it makes you, start thinking about the music and not your homework, that's when you should be like, no music. And usually classical music, I think it's awesome, but a lot of people think it's boring. So they listen to that when they do their homework. My sister does that. For some people, putting away your phone, it might be worse. Curiosity is quite strong. Yes, that is definitely true for Morgan. Curiosity is quite strong. And I would say that put in breaks, honestly, from when you study. Don't study for like 5 hours in a row. Definitely break it up every 45 minutes or so, take a 5-minute break. And during that 5-minute break, go check on the phone all you want. And I think that would, if you can't live without your phone for 45 minutes, I think we got bigger issues here. So yeah. Limits, but not terminate. Thank you for Morgan for agreeing with me. Why do you need social media? Honestly, you don't. I think social media is great for keeping people involved or connected with people you don't usually see. When I went to national conferences, I met people from, California or Oregon, and these were people I was probably not gonna see ever again. But by keeping in touch on social media, I was able to see all the cool things that they're doing back home and how different school is in those states than compared to us. And actually, we share ideas sometimes about, if I ever need an idea for a fundraiser, I just put a post saying, hey, if anybody has any ideas, slide up. And then there was actually one girl I stayed in touch with. She was also a state officer from California. And she and I are still in constant communication. Yeah. She gave me recommendations for my college application. So that's also benefit there. I feel like I do need to take this time to tell parents that social media can be very dangerous. There's numerous studies out there about how too much social media really leads to a lot of anxiety and stress and even depression at times because you're constantly, I think parents can also relate to this too, where you're comparing yourself with people that you see, and social media, you post things that are the best version of yourself. So it's really easy to be jealous or, to really feel undervalued or feel like what you have isn't enough because you see someone has something better. So that's definitely a con of social media that I think all the students here should be cognizant of. Okay, a lot of personal questions. A lot of yeses. Oh, Jennifer says, what happens if someone just doesn't like you? I think this goes back to the human relationship part. Couple suggestions. That's a tough question. I would definitely not let that sit Because I think if that relationship where you know someone has an active anger towards you, if you don't do anything about it, that anger is only going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to be awkward too. If you're never going to see them again, maybe not. But I actually had an experience with this where I was really upset with a girl who kind of backstabbed me in an event, and I held that resentment for years on end, and somehow word leaked. No, word didn't leak. She just found out, like she just knew somehow. We were just talking one day, and she just asked me like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I just told her and let it all out. And I think and then craziest thing is that after we talked through it and cleared the misunderstanding, because a lot of time the reason why someone just doesn't like you is that maybe there was a miscommunication or there's a misunderstanding. They don't really know you. If they really know you and they just don't like you, that's a different situation. But I guarantee you most of the time it's because you guys haven't had a heart-to-heart conversation yet. And with me and that girl, after we did that, now she's one of my best friends. Kind of crazy. Yes, from Jin, sometimes one word will make another person's day. Good insight. I see I made a couple mistakes when I was talking, so I definitely apologize if I said something that wasn't true or could be disputed. I hope some of the principles I said still made sense. Oh, nice. Ryan asked, how many hours of extracurricular per day versus hours on homework do I spend? Honestly, depends on each person. I would say the general rule is that homework and both increases, extracurricular and homework hours increase throughout as you get older. By senior year, junior year was actually probably my busiest because I took 6 APs. I would say, let me see. So school ended at 3:40 for me. I would get to the library around 4. I would grind it out to about 7:30. So that's like 3 hours with some breaks in the middle. And then afterwards I would, depending on which club it was, I would spend some time preparing for that. So maybe about an hour. And then finish out homework about another hour or 2. Wow. So definitely a lot more homework than extracurriculars. And honestly, for me, most extracurriculars are just like club meetings and things like that. So it really doesn't take up too much time outside of school. But homework does, which is why you want to finish as much homework in school as you possibly can. And honestly, lunch is such an important time. I would not undervalue the importance of lunch. Like I said, lunch is a great time to meet new people, to if you guys have lunch and learn like we do at my school, to go talk to teachers or to catch up on homework. For me, if I wasn't able to finish a homework the previous day, I would use lunch as a chance to finish that up. So definitely don't just sit there and eat lunch. Definitely try to do something other than that if you can. Oh, and also another thing is, like I said, I play clarinet, so I would try to practice 30 minutes-ish every day. And cool thing about playing the clarinet is that you physically can't practice for hours and hours. Like I know a lot of kids with piano and violins they would tell me crazy stories about they would wake up at like 6 a.m. in the morning and play for like 4 hours straight. I was like, good for you. Good. Oh, how do you deal with pressure? Pressure from study, busy schedules, competitions, etc. Yeah, great question. First things first, try to use the planner idea if you can. I think having a planner would reduce a lot of the external stresses from homeworks, from project deadlines, things like that. But I know there's a lot of internal stress too. Whether that comes from your family, your peers, and even yourself. You give yourself stress. So my suggestions, I have a couple. find an outlet where you can just do something fun. You know, for me, that was just, you know, going to my friend's house to play ping pong, or we would go play tennis, or we would go play ultimate frisbee sometimes. Sometimes we would just get on FaceTime and just talk, right? And that was my outlet. Or playing the even playing the clarinet sometimes was an outlet for me to just get away from all the pressures that was coming at me. Reading was definitely a big, not necessarily for me, but I know a lot of people. For me, journaling was huge. Whenever I was so stressed, pull out the pen, pull out the journal, just let all my anger out from inside my head and onto the paper. And I usually found that afterwards, I felt a lot better. Last thing I'll say is, I know not everyone here is religious, but honestly, just take some time to pray to God, really. I think for me is, like I said at the beginning, like, you're not always going to be there for him, but he's always going to be there for you. And I think that, you know, just taking a couple minutes to meditate and really, you know, pray does you wonders, really. You may not believe me, but give it a shot. Do you think it is very necessary to take notes after class using your textbooks? Like, do you think that is very necessary to take notes after class using it? Oh, yeah. It really depends on the person. It depends on how you learn. For me, no matter how much I wrote from the textbook, like, I just wouldn't understand it, I guess. I'm more of an auditory learner, so like I need someone talking to me for me to learn. Like, I'm a very much people person, and you can't really talk to a textbook. At least I don't think you can. So yeah, I don't think it's necessary, but I know a lot of kids who do take notes. Especially, I took a Georgia Tech math class. It was on linear algebra and multivariable, and you know, it was, since it was distance learning and we weren't actually at Georgia Tech, our textbook was our best friend. And, you know, I had to use the textbook. Not my preferred method, but it definitely helps. Let me do a couple more questions. Sorry, we're at 10:26. How do you not surf the internet on the same device you use? Good question. You know, if you're not gonna put the phone away or in airplane mode, something that I know some of my friends do is that there are actually apps out there that restrict the number of times, the amount of time you can use on a certain platform, like social media. Like, I forgot what's called. If you do some research, I'm sure you can find it, where it literally, if you're on Instagram for more than 15 minutes, it's gonna lock you out. And it says, hey, you set this timer yourself that you can't use Instagram for more than 15 minutes. Stop using it. And I mean, you can ignore it, but it's a good reminder, and I know that works for a lot of people. Wow. Thank you to everyone who said my presentation was useful. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. How do we get better focus in class even if the teacher decides where each person sits? Great question. Honestly, I would talk to, okay, if this was me, right? I would talk to the teacher and, you know, just be straight up with them and say, hey, I'm having trouble focusing in the back of the classroom. The kids around me are always talking and they're always being distracting. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But hey, I would love to sit in the front of the class. Like, this class is so important to me. I love statistics. And I don't want to miss out on any content just because I'm sitting in the back of the classroom. And if you say that, I don't know any teacher that will say no. If they do, I question their ability as teachers. Hopefully that helps. How do you balance? How do I take notes? Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this, how I take notes, but I kind of ran out of time. Here, this will be the last thing I do. Let me share my screen again. So I take notes. Most of my notes are physical because there's so many studies out there that show that, oh, let me go with this, that show that writing it down is so much better for memory recall than just typing it out or, you know, just listening to it or whatnot. So I do most of my notes on pen and paper, but I also take some on my notepad. So here is my computer science principles notes. In like physics and such, it's harder because you have to draw all these diagrams usually. And like I had to go back and find like physical, you know, and you have all these formulas like, you know, P equals FT, where, you know, you can't really draw on a computer. But it turns out that you can actually. So there's a lot of note-taking apps out there like OneNote, and there's a couple others that allow you to type and write with a pen at the same time. So you can definitely do more research. And I know that, especially for college students, that has been very, very helpful. Yeah. All right, one more questions. Oh gosh. Okay, so I'm seeing this right now from R, who sent the same question 4 times. I got you. R asked, what was the application process like and what grades / qualifications did you have? What was, okay, yeah. So I know there's a lot of young students here, so this question probably doesn't apply, but for any high school students here, college application was a very stressful experience. I started very early and then it still ended up, I had to go to the very last minute to finish it. So there's usually a combination of, you know, sending in your SAT, academic reports, AP grades, everything such as that. You had to get teacher recommendations, usually 2 to 3. You had to write essays. Essays were the biggest parts and definitely took up the most time. You had interviews after you submitted your application, so it was very long. And it starts from August and it ends until like February-ish. So yeah. What grades and qualifications did you need to have? There's not a certain grade or qualification. Just try to be the best you can be. There's not one set criteria. If you have more questions about, you know, specifically what's going on with your circumstance, we can definitely talk afterwards. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I should have finished my presentation earlier. There's so many more questions I didn't get to. And I see so many great questions here in the chat. But I definitely want to thank everyone here for being, everyone that's here today for being here. And again, love to continue talking to you guys afterwards. And I want to say bye to our friends in China, in Canada, across the US, etc. Awesome. Thank you.